This is part 1 of a 3-part podcast.
Hey, this is T. Blankenship. Are you a fan of pie? Where there's pie at Permies.com. This pie grants the user secret access. You also get free things like videos of Wheaton Labs, the ability to add 2 thumbs up to posts, and more. To get pie, go to Permies.com/pie to get the inside scoop of what pie can do for you. Again, that is Permies.com/pie.
Okay, it's going. Yeah, I can see the countdown numbers. All right. How many? I'm just going to ask this again. How many podcasts have you listened to, Clay?
Yeah, I've listened to somewhere around 400 podcasts.
Okay, and Stephen?
Somewhere over 200.
Okay, all right. Today we're going to kind of talk about being here and projects, and but I think the thing that we most want to talk about is something about like mostly I want to fish out Stephen's story, mostly, and like mostly about what brought you here. And by the way, I'm here with Clay and Stephen, both. How much time have you, Clay, I mean, Stephen, you've been a boot for 2 years, but Clay, how much time have you put in as being a boot? But you've also been here for events and some other stuff.
So I spent a week as a sepper where I worked in the boot camp for 5 or 6 days, and then I came for the PTJ this year, 2024, and I was here for 2 weeks, and now I came back as a sepper again to hunt down some BBs over Labor Day weekend, which is where we are right now.
Okay. All right. I guess, I mean, there's a bunch of little bits and bobs that we'll kind of cover today, but and Steve and I kind of made a little bit of a list of things. I like to make lists before a podcast, and I also kind of feel like there's about 27 more podcasts to make today. Like I went to this event in Coeur d'Alene and I ran into Joel Salatin and I got a lot to say about that. We did the PTJ. There's been just so much happening in so many different ways, and I got so much, and just the need to make podcasts has fallen on the back burner. But I don't know. I wanted to get this down. So, I've got. We're starting. We are. You know what? I think it's fair to say we are starting to see the bones of a permaculture theme park, like a permaculture Disneyland here. Does that seem about right?
Yeah. I'd say so. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yes.
So, I know that Andreas recently put together a video of the 41 rockety contraptions that are here or have been here. So it includes like stuff that we have since decommissioned, but I think that there's like 36 or so that are active, and then more that are not active. So now I'm not sure about those numbers, but 41. He was able to put together a video featuring 41 different rockety contraptions here. I don't know. And we're about to do Harvest Week here in a couple weeks, where it'll be a theme week, and I'm thinking about like already both of the solar food dehydrators are full, I believe, and I think it's.
You filled the other one totally?
I did. I only filled the one, so there's only one full and one that has no racks.
Yeah.
Okay. You
took the racks from one and moved it into the other so that I could use the rocket assist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Just want to make a shout out for the rocket boosted dehydrator. I use it in the wintertime. It is fantastic. It does awesome work.
So we have 2 solar food dehydrators, the original, which is giant, and then the new one, which is as giant. But it has several different features. Like the angle of the glass is made for spring and fall as opposed to summer, and the black inside of it is rocks, big ass rocks, like rocks that a person could barely lift. And the idea is that rather than just having the air pass through while the sun hits it, the air will, and it'll get hotter in the fall, which is when most of your harvest is, or in the spring. You know, there's a lot of harvest in the spring.
Rhubarb.
Yeah, a lot of rhubarb candies of sorts. But on top of that, because it heats up the rocks will carry the heat all night long, and it'll just keep going. But then, if you have a cloudy day, it's got the rocket boost, and so basically, this design is what, 10x? I mean, nobody wants to use the original one, and so he took all of the screens out of the old one and shoved them. Now, we did design it so that it could have 3 times more screens than what you start off with. Although there is some concern that it'll slow things down. But all right, anyway, we're kind of going off on a whole different topic than the boot camp.
It's an aspect of the permaculture theme park that you're talking about. I think a lot of people come here to, whether it's BBs or whether it's just the spectacle of, hey, I've never used this before, whether it's a rocket heater or one of those enormous non-electric dehydrators. I think a lot of people come here for that new experience, and that device in particular seems to be something people always ask about, always end up wanting to use when they're here.
And okay, so permaculture theme park, and I kind of feel like when it comes to beauty, we have really worked up a giant dose of beauty here. And so many different details and bigger projects and things like that. But setting that aside, I do think, I know that in the last couple of days, 2 days, I have talked to both of you about, and Chris, who's also here, Boot here, I've talked about, should we shift our priorities a little bit? Because when I first arrived, the idea is that we need perennial gardeners, like all year long, and we need perennial permy habitat, and if you don't have that, you can't have the perennial permaculture gardens. And so we've focused on that, and granted, everything has gone a lot slower than I originally thought it would, but that's cool. It took as long as it took, and now I think we have tons of bunks. We can easily support a full community. And in order to have somebody who lives here for 10 years, you have to open your doors to the people that are willing to be here for just a week, because they got to come and kind of feel it out. And further, all right. So I've got, as much as I want to talk about permaculture paradise, permaculture Disneyland, things like that, and there's so much more we need to do. But the transition I think we need to have is now I want to shift our priorities. I mean, we still have a lot of high priorities that we have to work on for the, like, Allerton Abbey still has a lot of work that needs to be done, and I kind of feel like I could make a whole podcast just about talking about the projects at Allerton Abbey that still need to be done, and then we can move on to, like, okay, let's make 5 more Wafatis, and each time let's do them in series, so that way each design gets better and we can really dial this in. But I think that we need to be shifting probably towards 20x food and get our food systems really on rails. I mean, I think we're going to pump out a lot of food this year. I think our harvest week is going to be packed. I think it's like we'll find out we don't have enough solar food dehydrators. And at the same, even though they're giant and effective, at the same time, I feel like we need to 20x that. And we need to be exploring how do we get our food systems to be far, far more. I think that with our crops this year, we're looking at probably meeting 15 to 20% of the food needs of the boots now, maybe? What do you think, Stephen?
I think we're going to have a lot of squash this year, a lot of potato, a lot of sunchokes. Those are the big three that I see all over the place. For whatever reason, we seem to struggle a lot with pretty much anything else. A lot of greens are the other things that I see come out, whether it's kale or like a salad mix or some of the perennial stuff like lamb's quarters. One thing I would like to try in the future is a lot more discipline and structure in terms of starting seeds indoors and then bringing stronger plants outside, because normally what we've been doing is just direct seeding, and a lot of plants need a little more TLC and babying in order for them to succeed outside.
Right.
So, and then there was the whole hardening off thing you were talking about earlier this week, where you bring those seedlings out for a little bit of time and then bring them back inside, a little bit more time and then back inside, and then finally, after a couple cycles of that, you bring them outside and you put them in the ground, and then at that point they ought to be a little more calloused to the change in temperature and stuff like that, and environment. So this year, if we're focusing on, strictly calorie count, I'd say, 20% of our food. I think I'm comfortable in saying that.
Yeah. And then, of course, we're going to have bounties once in a while, and then we do a lot of food preservation, and we'll get better and better and better. But I'd like to think that next year we'll be hitting 80%. But I also kind of feel like the hugelkulturs that are right here next to the house, clearly the hugelkultur part is working. It's just lushness. It's just packed full of growies, and it's just that not all of the growies are edibles, and it's so. And then at the same time, we need to improve our scaffolding or steps or paths and stuff like that to be able to get up there. And so I've been working on some of that the last couple of weeks on one of them. And
don't forget that one of the reasons why there's the non-edible greens or growies that are up there, they're there to help build soil, which is something that ever since I showed up here, that's something you've talked about, wanting to build soil. So there's a great habitat for plants as well as microorganisms and bugs and so on and so forth to help keep that system going. So that's why there's a big chunk of alfalfa or lamb's quarters. Not everybody likes to munch on it like I do, but that stuff is up there and it serves a purpose. That letting the asparagus grow gigantic and huge and ferny there's a purpose behind that. So I don't know. I just wanted to put that in there. Don't forget, it's not just about growing food right now. It's about making sure that the soil is building itself up.
Right. Absolutely true, and I know that when I go up onto the hugelkultur, that one of the things I like to do is there's snowberry growing on there, because snowberry grows everywhere here, and while it's a nitrogen fixer, it is not an edible thing in any way, shape, or form. And so what I do is I trim it down to be 3 to 6 inches tall, and then I take the stuff that I just cut and then I lay it horizontally within that stuff, because now it's the stuff that's still in the ground holds up the rest of the mulch. Yeah. And so there's lots of stuff like that. And we, of course, allow mullein to grow like crazy, but we do tend to harvest the mullein leaves. I don't think we've harvested any mullein blossoms, but I know that we do a lot of the mullein. All right, I'm getting off into the weeds. The thing is, the key is that permaculture Disneyland, we're really getting there. We're really kind of on it now. I mean, we still have a long ways to go, but there's the bones of it is here now, and so it begins. And I kind of feel like with all the busy, we need to somehow take more pictures, make more movies and videos and things like that. But it just seems like there's so much happening all at once. All right.
For a change.
Yeah. At the same time, and part of the reason why we want to record this podcast is to encourage more people to come out to the boot camp, and as well as a separate program. And in fact, we've come up with this idea of the themed weeks. Hopefully, that'll help to entice people. Mostly, I kind of feel like we're ready for the separate program. And I gotta say, somebody was telling me, Paul, you can't call it the separate program. You have to rename it because it's seriously excited about permaculture pampering, and mostly I just felt it was funny to use SEP, for reasons. And it's like, you're not pampering. People are going to expect like a 4-star resort or something like that. And I kind of want to emphasize, it is humble cabins, but they are, 10 times better than they were 10 years ago. And we're constantly getting them to be better and better and better. And I think they're still humble. And it's like somebody was staying in the red cabin and they were talking about getting up in the middle of the night. And it was a woman, and she's like, I have to go pee somewhere where there's 4 walls and a roof. and I'm not going to pee right outside the cabin. And so she had to, hike in the middle of the night, and while it's illuminated and everything like that, it's still like, I want to be able to pee right here. And
I think about people who take time to go to a campsite, and maybe they have a trailer or maybe they're in a tent, but if you have to go pee in the middle of the night at a campsite, you're not even allowed to go pee right outside your door. You have to hike to wherever that bathroom is. And, when you think about the distance from the red cabin to the willow feeders, we're talking 100 yards or so, and maybe 1 flight of stairs. And I think that's worth it when you think of, okay, you're in this pretty cool eco accommodation, and maybe it's winter and maybe you've got your rocket mass heater going, but it's all a little self-contained unit, and you can be very, very comfortable in this space, hot, cold. I've been comfortable in every cabin I've stayed in, and I think that the maybe rough edges are worth encountering to come up and experience all of this.
Clay, didn't I see a video during the PTJ of you with a flying squirrel?
That was fun.
Rocky?
Yeah. And I guess I was Bullwinkle. So, I stayed up on what's known as Plum Plateau. And it was night, and I was talking with some folks, and we heard scrabbling against one of our tents, and we kind of panicked because, we're out in the wilderness here, and what is it? Some sort of ferocious beast, I'm sure. And we turn around, and our headlamps all zone in on it, and it freezes. And it's this little flying squirrel about the size of, your hand. And it was on the tent, and it shouldn't necessarily remain there. So I grabbed it from behind its neck, and I extracted it from the tent, and I walked it over, and all right, here you go. And as I was going to set it down, it tried to almost turned around, tried to bite me, which is very fair. I can respect that. And it was just kind of a weird experience that, here we are, and then here is this benign piece of wildlife that happened to be in our camp.
We do have some flying squirrels, not a lot, but a few. So, all right. So we're getting close to having the bones. We currently have the bones of a permaculture theme park, and I feel like I could fill a podcast just talking about that. Like, how do we get that? What does that mean? And I kind of feel like we are. I mean, so often when you live in the city or whatever, you rent a place and you're limited in what you can do, and so I don't know. I think I like the idea of the people who take a new PDC every year because they just need to have a couple of weeks of being with their people, and so I kind of feel like being here for a couple of weeks might help to feed that need, not only being with your people, but being able to, because I've been to PDCs not only as a student, but early on, but also later as a presenter, a guest instructor kind of a thing. And some of those places are very cool, and some of them are not cool at all. And so it's like, but I kind of feel like we've made a really great venue for that kind of thing. So, all right. How did you guys hear about Wheaton Labs? And so first I'm going to ask Clay, and then I'll ask Steve.
I think it was YouTube. Actually, I think it might have even been as early as 2011 when I had encountered some sort of rocket video. And I didn't really necessarily think, oh, this is Paul Wheaton and I'm going to watch his YouTube channel. I just kind of stumbled across it. And then I want to say somewhere around 2019, YouTube stuff came popping back up. And to me, I went, oh, this rocket stuff, I've seen this before. This is really straightforward. And I feel like that perspective is something a lot of folks don't have. And I think it was because I was exposed to it just, oh, yeah, here it is on YouTube coming up, and here's rocket stuff. And so from there, from YouTube, I got into the podcast, and the pandemic did help with that. I had a lot of time where I was able to just listen to podcasts and go work and do stuff, and I wasn't called to go anywhere else for obvious reasons. And eventually I backed the Skip Kickstarter. I think that was my first one. And about that same time I made an account and I registered with Permies. And I've kind of ramped up. I've gone from lurker to active BB poster, and now I'm thinking, oh, I have other threads that I want to start. So I'm kind of stepping into the community a little bit more over the last several years.
And then as part of that, I don't know, we probably sent out an email or something like, hey, and then you're like, oh, I'm not that far away. I could. Yeah. I'm a part of the daily-ish, weekly-ish, and monthly-ish email mailing lists, and yeah, it's really nice to hear, oh, we've got this thing going on, or the PTJ is a great example. I think it came out in the daily-ish that you were having the ticket blitz. I'm like, well, at that price, that's my food bill for 2 weeks. So I'm going to get food. It's worth it if I just go sit and watch the clouds pass. Oh, by the way, we're doing really awesome, cool projects, even better. So yeah. And Stephen, I see the key fob right there. It says Roy. And so I think maybe every podcast for the next 2 years we should say thanks to the guy that got us this little pickup. It's really been a big help.
Thank you, Benefactor.
Yeah,
it's almost our daily run vehicle that goes from the lab to the base camp and back a couple times. I pick up all sorts of stuff with it. Yesterday I was hauling the hydrant that we had to replace. I brought the old hydrant back here. We use it every day. Thank you very, very much. It's a huge game changer.
So we recorded a podcast where we kind of had a list of like, here's some stuff that we got to figure out how to get, and it's a struggle. And so a guy, he's like, here, let me just solve that whole truck thing for you real quick. And so it's a brand new truck. All he asked was that it be named Roy, and there's it's after a philosopher. And so he named a book that he felt was the best book from this philosopher, and we mounted the book inside of Roy. It's now mounted in there. But even more than that, because it's to replace Ranger Doug. And Ranger Doug, was a pickup truck with a street value of maybe $200 with a ladder rack with a street value of about $2,000. And so really it was the engine below the ladder rack. So then it's kind of like, okay, let's get the ladder rack moved. And that was a full 2 weeks of work at the PTJ because the size of the bed on Roy is completely different. And so they had to it was like basically just reuse the steel to rebuild a whole new ladder rack. So now Roy has a handsome ladder rack, and Roy has been working great. And Roy's trick is 42 miles to the gallon, perfect for trips to town.
I think it's important to mention it's a hybrid vehicle.
Yeah.
And the gas mileage, for example, the amount of emissions, it's really impressive. Drives real smooth, makes it up to the mountain and back. Does a great job. I'm curious to see how it does in the winter and all the snow and everything like that. Probably just as good, if not better, than Ranger Doug. That's my guess. Yeah,
Ranger Doug was a tiny truck, and the idea was good mileage for trips into town or for buzzing up to the lab or something like that. I mean, I think we're developing some good habits in using the electric bicycles more. We had 4 electric golf cart-like things, but that's proven to be I've developed some new philosophies about that kind of rig. I had one on Mount Spokane, and it was the center of everything. But every one that we've had just breaks down all the damn time. And so I think and there's reasons, and I could make a whole podcast about that, but I like the idea of getting one that's reliable again and trying that out. I think that's a really good path. But you also need to have a really good place to park it, and where it can be charged and it can be kept dry. And maybe that's where we should be. Yeah. Well, anyway, now I'm going off into the weeds again. Thank you for Roy to the benefactor. It has really made life better. I mean, the well, that was your big thing last year or the year before, is we need a well.
I was begging you on bended knee, please put that money from a Kickstarter into a new water source. And thank you for doing that, Paul.
And we did it, and it basically killed us. It turned out to be about 4 times more expensive than we had budgeted. And but it's there, and now we have water here, and one thing is easier. So and Roy, okay, all right, Stephen. The purpose of this podcast is to hear your story. So, something about you were living far away, and then somehow you heard about us. How did you hear about us?
I was probably looking on Kickstarter, and I saw something about better light bulbs or something about light bulbs. I think it went that far back that I had first learned about you. I've somehow backed I think 9 Kickstarters of yours. I don't know if the light bulbs was the first one I did, but I probably that's the first way I heard about you and what it is you do.
Wow.
So it was a minute ago.
That had to be 12 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was quite some time ago. And I was probably on Kickstarter looking for something about bicycles or something about camping equipment, and I just started looking at the stuff that you did. And I think the first Kickstarter I backed was the Rocket Mass Heater DVDs or whatever those films were. I don't know, I just kept following you more and more. And then I saw the Kickstarter for the Truly Passive Greenhouse, and I said, okay, they've got a lot of stuff going on there, and I'm interested in visiting. So I told my boss, hey, I want to take a hiatus, or a sabbatical was the term I wanted. And I was going to say, okay, next year, May 2020, I'm going to take the month off and head on over there to Montana. And, well, everybody took May 2020 off, it seems like. And I had to postpone my trip out here. I ended up coming not just as a sabbatical in 2022, but I resigned from my day job. And I came out here first for a month as a sepper, and I dedicated half of my days to working with the boots, and then that was so I could figure out whether or not I could do it, if, being a boot full time. And then, the answer for me after a little bit of adjustment, I was like, yeah, I can do this. And so I decided to stay here for at least the 2 years and pick up the acre. And here I am now, still as the High Commander.
Have you ever wondered whether a particular book was really good or just so-so, and if you could trust the reviews online? When it comes to books related to permaculture, Permies has a large list of reviews for over 100 books. Perhaps you're considering a book for yourself or a friend, or you're just curious about what's out there. Stop by permies.com/book and take a look at the book review grid and read some honest reviews, and hopefully you'll find the next book to add to your collection.
So, I wanna explore for you, Stephen. Like, basically, you retired, you resigned, you left your worky job, you left city life, and you came out here. I don't know. I kind of feel like there's going to be a lot of pod people listening to this. And what I want to do, because I kind of thought that within months of arriving here that we would have like 40 people from the podcast living here. And you guys, you know the rest of this story. And at the same time, it seems like it's the people that have come here and been the best have been the pod people. I mean, they've listened to hundreds. And so they jump right in. I mean, the people that have not listened to any podcasts have been oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes challenging as they do things like, they point at a willow feeder and they say you're doing humanure wrong. And I was like, there's a lot more books than the one humanure book about that kind of thing. No, the humanure book's all there is. And you're doing it wrong. You're not doing it the way it's. And I was like, well, anyway. The thing is, I feel like part of what I've tried to do here is to create something that I wanted 20 years ago. And I think I think I got here the first few months. But all right, I'd like to hear from you, Stephen, about why. Why come out here? Why make this leap? And I mostly because I'm kind of thinking there's probably a lot of people listening to this right now that might have that same basket of why.
Let's see. All right. When I was relatively young, that's when I first learned about the idea of radical sustainability or, living off grid and things like that. I'm talking about my early 20s. Maybe I was like 20 or 21 years old. And there were two friends of mine who were organic vegans, and they first were the ones who told me about this radical lifestyle. It doesn't have to be the usual, and we're doing a different path than most everybody else. And I saw how weird they were, but the guy would still come into the coffee shop where I worked, and he would pick up his soy milk latte and take one back to his girlfriend. And so the two of them sort of introduced me to alternative ideas, like solar panels. What in the hell is that? Like having a battery in your home that helps power things off grid. What in the world? I've never even heard of that before. And for the record, none of this had anything to do with my college education, which is a degree I really don't feel like I use anymore, and I'm not going to go into detail about it. Oh gosh, it's so old life right now. But the point is that ever since those 20 or 21 years old, those ideas had been rattling around in my brain. And even younger than that, I had been in Boy Scouts and I'd been camping and had a couple merit badges here and there. But anyway, I realized that, wow, people actually do this kind of stuff, and that's how they live their life. You can go to school to learn about these sorts of things, and have a formal education on it. Meanwhile, I can't afford to go back. I have to pay off my college loans. I have to pay off this, blah, blah, blah. I'm living in the city. I got to get a normal job. I got to drive my car and get a car insurance, and so those were always sort of like dreams deferred. Things like, man, I'll get to that someday. I'll get to that someday. I'll get to that someday. Well, now, 20-some years later, here I am like, well, living in the city. I'm entrenched here, but I'm terribly unhappy. I've met my most recent financial goal. Loans have been paid off a long time ago. I've been debt-free for a while and sort of like spinning my wheels. And I was saying, well, is this really it? Am I supposed to be living in the city? Being working. My day job was at a nonprofit. I was a trades instructor, and I was very unhappy with city life, and I needed to find something else to fulfill me. And so those little dreams that I had from my 20s popped back into my head, and I was like, all right, here I am in my mid-40s right now. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? The same old thing, or am I, the question that came up in my mind was like, okay, am I going to be lying in bed at night always wondering what it would have been like had I followed through with what I originally wanted to do? And I finally decided, okay, if I don't do it now, I'm probably never going to have a chance to do it again. So I did it. At first it was the idea for the sabbatical, and just to get a taste of it. And then, after the pandemic began, I was like, I don't have anything to lose. I have no kids. I have no debts. I have no property. Let's just fucking go for it. And I decided to go all in and give this lifestyle a try, because I had nothing to lose on the other end. I was like, if it goes great, then I will have learned that it can be great. If I totally fall flat on my face, well, it's okay. It's okay that way. I made it this far. I could recover from that, and I'll try something else. It just turned out that coming here seemed to be one of the best decisions I've made in decades, and I want to stay here and I want to see this place succeed. So that's why I'm still here, and that's why I'm High Commander, trying to help you make things work.
So I want to take a bit that you said, and I want to say it a different way and apply it to me, and maybe give Clay a chance to see if he's got any thoughts in this space. And that is, I know that for a while, for reasons, I was living in the city, and I did my best to do permaculture gardening and things like, but I couldn't have animals there, because it's the city and whatnot. And I had to go to my worky job, and I had to pay bills, and there was it just seemed like over and over and over again there was just sleaze that had to be dealt with. You're just confronted with a new sleaze every week, maybe even every day, and it's like now you have to deal with it. Sometimes you throw money at it, but hey, you got a worky job which pays lots of money, and so yeah, whatever. But it just seemed like day after day, week after week, it was like drudgery. I mean, and granted, I had my garden and I could do my garden, but it just seemed like everything was not the life I did on Mount Spokane. It was not the life that I want to do. And then not only that, but when I left Mount Spokane, my thought was I want to do 10 times more, and 20 times more, 100 times more, and I want to be in community, and I want to, And it's like, so, but I got to do this for now. And then it just all day, every day. I mean, there was a lot of good experiences that I had. I did manage to live in community, and I don't know, every day just felt like a compromise, and it felt like I was living this life that was 10% of what I wanted to do. It felt restrictive. It felt like it was strangling me. And there were so many elements that were just like, it just felt like less. And it felt small and gray. And the amount of sleaze was tremendous. Now, don't get me wrong. Now I live this whole other life, and I still get just as much sleaze, but the amount of sleaze that I get is because I choose to share information, and then I get all kinds of people. People who call me their friend, as well as people who are like, you're a piece of shit, trying to direct my life. All right.
One thing I wanted to say is that if you don't have a seat at the table, you're going to be on the menu. And what you did, Paul, was you took a seat at the table. And now you're calling more of the shots. And you're no longer at the behest of everybody else. I think that's how I would summarize what it is you're talking about. Like, you're being pushed, like if you're living in the city trying to make it work under that kind of environment, you're going to get pushed around constantly by the people who are fucking the city up. And so finally you have to go somewhere where you're not going to be pushed around so much. You are the guy who calls the shots here. You move to a place where you don't have you don't have city inspectors, or you don't have nosy ass neighbors getting into your business all the time.
Neighbors telling you how you have to live your life, even though they don't live their life that way.
So that's all you chose to do. And I think anybody with the resources that you had available and the vision that you had in your brain that wouldn't go away, I think anybody in that situation would have done the exact same thing that you've done.
So I want to tell a quick story. Just to kind of, because I'm trying to say, like, there's just, every day there's sleaze in the city, and it's like I just got tired of it. So I got a new worky job, because that's what I do. I was a contractor. I was like corporate whore for hire, on a temporary basis. I charged a lot of money. And so I got a new worky job, but this one was going to last at least a couple of months. And it just so happens that the bus that went by my house, like half a block away, would just go directly to my work. And I'm thinking, like, that is what I'm going to do. So on day one, I needed to be on time. So I drove in, and I paid something like $40 to park one day. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do the bus tomorrow. So it's all good. And, because I wasn't sure, like, how long it might be, how many times it might stop or whatever, I got extra early, and I went out to the bus stop. And I got all my, things to be able to take the bus. And the bus goes by every 7 minutes. And it's like, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk. And then here comes my bus. And it just drives by. It's obviously packed full of people. And then 7 minutes later, here it comes again. Same. When the third bus went by, I just walked the half a block home and got into my car, because I'm kind of like, is this going to take hours to just even be able to get on the bus? So it's like, this is the kind of thing where it's like over and every day, over and over and over and over, there's always something. And now I'm gonna. So, Stephen, I want to ask you: Do you believe, because you were living in the city, and now you live here, is the amount of sleaze in a month less here than it was when you were living in the city?
exponentially. Absolutely. So I lived in Baltimore City. I was a 5-day-a-week commuter to bicycle commuter to my day job, and I was living in the city. I'd lived there for many, many years. I worked at the same location or the same company, it was a nonprofit organization for over 15 years, and I threw a lot of love into Baltimore City, and it never came back. To sum it up, I finally was hit by a car while riding my bicycle, and I said, well, fuck it, I'm not living in Baltimore City anymore if I'm not going to be riding my bike. This was the last straw. So then I moved out to the burbs a little further away, and I decided to commute by car instead of bicycle. And then other life situations changed. I'd finally broken up with my last girlfriend in town, and I was like, finally getting into a relationship in town with a lady who lived in the city as well, exposed a whole other dimension of, the anxiety and the struggles of living in the city. And I stopped thinking that it was worth trying that hard. I don't know. I guess I just had it beaten out of me, over it. Whatever kind of resolve I had to stay and live in city life and not pursue this dream that I have of doing this kind of lifestyle now, whatever that resolve was to make it work in the city and change the city and turn things around, it was eventually eroded out of me, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. So, thanks, Baltimore. You gave me the kick in the ass to actually help me find out what it is and where I can go to do what I really want to do.
When you've been here, is this your first time ever canning food?
Yeah, I'd never. I'd used the dehydrator before, and I know people who were making kimchi, for example. The 5-day refrigerator kimchi, but drying all sorts of stuff without an electric dehydrator, making jam for the first time. I made applesauce for the first time earlier this week. Was it Monday or Tuesday?
By the way, you need to label those, label the lid thoroughly every time you make any applesauce, like the dates as well as what all's in it. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. It's
I didn't think anybody else was going to be eating it, so I was like, we're going to eat. Because that stuff was not canned, that was just put in a jar. So I've been eating that stuff all day or every day. Oh. So that stuff is not for shelf storage. Oh. Just to clarify. Oh. That's why I didn't bother labeling it.
Okay. Okay. Well, then in that case, what I want to do is to say, dude, you're supposed to preserve it, can it, so it can sit on the shelf for 5-10 years, and then keep eating all the fresh apples that are coming off all the trees.
We've been kind of low. We've been kind of low on time, Paul.
Fair.
Which is
fair.
Why, this is a demonstration as to why having more people in the boot camp is important. So we can take the time to, put the time aside to properly can and have this stuff for long-term storage, and then we can go out, spend time harvesting more apples, bring those apples in before they sit on the ground and they go bad, and either eat them or turn them into more applesauce.
I guess the place where I'm going, and I don't know about you guys, but for me, it is bizarre how if you put up 200 jars of rhubarb jam, there's an extreme. Not only is it extremely soul building, and you get a lot of spoons, but it's something where it has a half-life of several years. That good feeling carries for years after you've done it.
I think that what it does is it helps you realize that it's possible. It helps you realize that, wow, I have it within me to be able to do this kind of thing. I didn't know, all you see on YouTube, for example, where a lot of people go to find first exposure to something, is some fancy, super well-produced video on how to can your jam, and it's like our exposure to like instructions on how to make jam was this lovely British woman speaking about how she put a little bit of lemon in her rhubarb jam. She looked in a 1920s cookbook that someone had written with pencil, their own little notes on the side of the margin. and it was a gorgeous video. We're like, okay, this is how it works. Let's give it a try. And it wasn't as hard, and it wasn't as dramatic, and it wasn't as, it wasn't as involved a process as we thought it was going to be. Now, it did take time, but that's part of the process. But whether it was making the jam or actually doing the water bath canning, it was not some sort of monolith, not a monolith. It just wasn't some kind of massive undertaking, And this is something that people back in the day, they did it every week, a couple times a week even,
right, during the harvest.
Yeah. And it is a process that is so far removed from modern life, and in my case, modern city life, that like canning just seemed like some kind of arcane process that I would never be able to wrap my mind around until I was in a position where, like, okay, we have all the equipment here. We have a couple people. We have all the fruit that's going to go bad if we don't do something with it. And I can't really eat, too many stalks of rhubarb raw. So let me figure out how to can it and turn it into something more palatable and certainly much more shelf-stable for a longer period of time. And so it was born out of necessity, out of curiosity, out of opportunity, and you learn that, wow, now I've done it before, I can do it again. Yeah, I'm sure you can probably make jam out of the wild strawberries we find, or what if we mixed them together? Let's give that a try, So It's like the barrier for entry is now gone. Again, you've done it once before, and it turned out pretty good, and it gives you the courage to try it again and to innovate and to optimize, which is something you love to talk about all the time. And
I thought it was hilarious when you guys made that first rhubarb jam.
And it was this brown.
I said, make sure to keep the red and the green separate.
Yes.
And then while I stepped away, somebody, I'm not, because it was this spring and summer we had a really great boot crew, and so somebody's like, that's just dumb. What does it matter? And so sure enough, how does it matter, Stephen?
It had a lovely caramel color, but you wouldn't expect that out of fruit jam. And but then, later on in the summer we did it again, another harvest of rhubarb. We had some beautiful emerald green, and then we had some with a little bit more of that beet powder that you had found, to turn it this vibrant red.
There's red rhubarb, and we've got different varieties.
There's red and there's green, so we kept those separate from one another, and the green is gorgeous. And then the red is just, they added a little bit of that beet powder into it.
Well, they did now that I got that stuff. It's actually, I think, a hibiscus or something.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah.
But the thing is that even before I got that, the red rhubarb looked red and the green rhubarb looked green. Mm-hmm. And I said, you don't want to mix those two because you'll end up with brown and then nobody wants to eat it.
Yeah, that's what it's still tasty. So
it tastes great. It's just that it's brown, and it's like, is there something wrong with it? This is rhubarb. There's something wrong with this.
And our applesauce is brown, but it's not because we put cinnamon and nutmeg and stuff in it. We put maple syrup in it. Thanks, Mike Hazel. The maple syrup. That's that's a great flavor combination. The apples and the maple. It's like tart apples is how the flavor or the taste of it begins, and then it ends with the maple, like that smoky maple kind of flavor. So it's the applesauce beyond. And again, we've made that. Whether it was jam or whether it was the applesauce, those are things that I had never done before until I had the opportunity and the fresh apples, the awesome maple syrup, or bushes of rhubarb all over the place. Never would have been able to do it otherwise.
Is it unlike living in Baltimore, is it a soul building experience? Like an oddly, I want to say oddly, it seems on the outside like it seems like a chore to be done, but then there's a bizarre thing for me that when I do it, it's like this is some of the happiest I've ever had.
Well, I will say this about the contrast that you're putting here. Riding my bicycle every day to work in the city was a soul-building experience, just as much as making a dozen jars of jam. So it is a different experience, a different soul-building experience. So I can't say that unequivocally, city life is shit, rural life is awesome. I'm not gonna generalize that because that's not true. There are some beautiful things about living in the city. It's just that in my case, the beautiful things were completely smothered by everything that got in my way when I was trying to live in the city. So
I moved to Missoula because Missoula is a bicycle town, and at the time when I was young, I was
Saturday.
Yeah.
Every Saturday, I try to go into town and ride my bike all over the place.
It is very much a bicycle town, but I moved there because it's a bicycle town, and I refused to own a vehicle at the time, and but at the same time, as the years passed, as I'm living in Missoula, the best town in the world, then the thing I didn't like about riding my bicycle is sucking in all the car fumes. And but Missoula is kind of cool because it has a lot of paths that are away from most of the cars or away from all of the cars.
Yeah, another shout out from Missoula. There is a bike trail it's the Milwaukee Path bike trail that goes east-west, and it follows the river all the way through town. You don't have to deal with any automobiles at all. There are actual tunnels underneath the north-south roads, that are going from the north side to the south side. So you don't have to encounter cars at all. I think it's great. There are people walking. There are people like pushing baby strollers, and there are other bicyclists like me. And don't have to deal with cars at all. It's fantastic. It's a brilliant design.
So, I mean, there's been a lot of passion for bicycles for decades, and to make Missoula into this really glorious bicycle town. But all right, the thing is that I too used to feel that powerful thing with bicycles, and but I somehow it just started to, I don't know, rot in my head that I was sucking exhaust whenever I would go to work or I would go on a long bike ride. I'm on a road, and nowadays, of course, there's a lot of bicycles going up into the wilderness, and that's a thing that people didn't even think to try back then, I guess, but now they do it all the time. But I don't know. The thing is that sensation of like living the life that I felt like I was not allowed to live while I was living in Seattle, and so there's some of that. So Clay, what do you got so far? There's like 4 or 5 things that we've covered. Surely you've got some stuff to add to that.
Sure, yeah. So I live in Boise, Idaho, which has a very similar theme and vibe to Missoula, I'd say. We have a lot of great bike area, and it's accessible. That said, I also have a worky job. I make my way half hour, 45 minutes into the downtown. I park several miles away from work. Work pays for a bus, but unfortunately, the one day I needed it most, when there were several inches of snow on the ground, the bus didn't come. And so I kind of just gave up riding the bus, and I will put my bike in my truck, and I'll ride my bike or I'll walk. And I appreciate that, but I stick to we have it's called a green belt, which is very similar, it sounds like, to the Milwaukee path. I stick to the green belt because I've been hit by a car on a bike. Thankfully it was very minor, and it was a person who didn't look both ways at a stop sign, and so it was not a high speed collision. But I at that point I was like, oh cool, I'm not riding on the streets anymore, because I don't feel I was crossing a crosswalk within every legal right. The car had stopped and they did not look at me. So those types of city things are the rough edges I'm bumping up against in the city. I'm fortunate enough to have a little bit of a half acre, and I have gardens, and I'm technically outside city limits, so I can have chickens and roosters, and I could probably even have things like goats if I wanted. Several of my neighbors do, but I think, Paul, you said rot, something sticks in your head and kind of rots in your head. And for me, when I wake up every day and I go about my routine in my house, there's so many things for which I know that there's a better path. And whether it's how I heat my home, or what happens to my human waste, or the neighborhood's construction itself, there are things which just grate against my skull. And it's almost a curse of being forced to see the world for what it could be, not what it is. And I think that permaculture kind of infected me in that way of I kind of can't tolerate XYZ. And so over the past several years, my wife Cassie and I have gone mostly organic, somewhere in the 80 to 90% organic range. We've changed the cleaners we use. We've, I hang dry most of my clothes. There are so many little things. I do. I have chickens. I have 11 chickens and 4 roosters. The 4 roosters probably won't last very long. But no, there's a lot of things where I am trying to walk a path with which I'm comfortable, which I'm happy, and I like what I'm doing. And some of those things I can definitely do in the city. And, I can bucket flush my toilet. I can collect my shower water. I can grow a pretty good garden, and get I don't know, we'll find out this year when I do my calorie count, which is for a badge bit, but I'll find out how many calories this year I produced on my land. I've got squash and carrots and tomatoes out my ears, and those things are great. And there's stuff that I want to do which I physically, legally cannot do. I'm very passionate about cows. I get a lot of my calories from cows, meat, and dairy. And I would love to have a grain-free organic dairy. And not a huge one, maybe 4 or 5 cows at the most. But that's the how do you do that on a half acre? Oh, you don't. Yeah. And you maybe you could rent. Oh, but you have the worky job you have to go to. So if you were renting some sort of ground from somebody, how do you make that work with your commute? You spend an hour and a half in the car each day breathing those fumes, and so that's where, kind of circling back to the permaculture Disneyland idea, that's where a place like Wheaton Labs really entices me, because I have an opportunity to do things that I simply don't in the suburbs of Boise, Idaho. I don't have a prolific trees that I can cut down. We're more prairie, and so I have some trees in my yard, but I surely don't want to cut down my shade trees or my apricot, and so coming here and asking Stephen, hey, Stephen, are there concerns if I cut down these junk poles? How many should I leave? And I'm told, no, there's no real concern. You can kind of get rid of all of those. That's refreshing. I'll touch on something maybe folks are a little less comfortable with. I love peeing outside. I love it. It's great, and it's encouraged here. And
to be clear, you said peeing outside, not being outside.
Correct, urinating. I did that once, and I was talking to a friend about that, and he got kind of skeeved out in my backyard of like, oh, you're peeing over here. That's kind of gross. I'm not gonna. And the people that you encounter at Wheaton Labs and doing what you do at Wheaton Labs, those are things that it's hard to replicate in the aesthetic environment of the city, where people care more about appearances than they do the meat, the substance of their actions. And I find there's a lot that draws me here. I love rocket heaters. I want to build one. I bought a rocket oven because I want to cook in a rocket oven.
It's in the back of your truck.
Yeah, it's in the back. Yeah, we can. Yeah, it's silly, huh?
Like, where did that come from?
Yeah,
I was like, I recognize that shape. And there's an exhaust pipe coming out of it. That's the one you had found on
Craigslist. I found it on Craigslist.
You did push the button on it. Okay.
I did. Yeah.
All right.
Micah and Jen and R. Lee had built this, and they were, had finished its life with them, and they were looking to sell it. And so, hey, well, I guess that's my excuse to go back to Wheaton Labs for Labor Day weekend.
Oh, now we learn. I want to add one thing about, I remember for a while I was working contracts in the Denver area, and I remember, driving in, I was every day as I would drive home to the Denver area, then there's this giant brown cloud over Denver, and Denver's kind of in a plains of sort. It's next to mountains. The mountains are 45 minutes away, but so it's really it's a place where the wind blows and clears up, but it's so often the brown cloud is there, and it's like I'm breathing that in every day, and it just itched in my brain, and I'm kind of like, this is contrary to my values, and yet I just get right in there. So it's another sleaze point, I guess. But and it's like, I don't know, what do? I look the other way, pretend like this just isn't really happening to me. And it was another sleaze point. Okay, I'm ready to go on to the next bit. First, I want to say that when it comes to the boot camp, I think a lot of people are a little concerned about how hard it's going to be. And, of course, other people that arrive to the boot camp are not concerned enough. I do think that for the first couple of weeks, we make sure that, hey, take a break, sit down, don't try to keep up with that guy. That guy is a machine. And it takes a while. And so, Stephen, when you started, you did your first month here in the Sepper program, and then you joined the boot camp for half a day every day for that month. And then after that, you transitioned to the boot camp where it's 40 hours a week in the boot camp. But we've seen a lot of people come, and we've seen some people that were extremely nervous that they're not going to be able to keep up. And I think that they are pleasantly surprised at no, we expect your first week to be a bit of a wash. And so you're going to go along with us, and you're going to help out a little bit. But yeah, if there's something heavy duty, we need you to sit down and take a break. Take 5, probably a couple times an hour. Does that sound about right?
That's completely fair to say. The first, so people show up on Sunday, and then we start boot tasks with them the Monday, the next day, and you come in and give a little bit of a spiel, and you talk about how you want people to go with the flow because things are a little different here compared to where they may have been, and then you also talk about taking the breaks, and then what's the third thing you said? Oh, the fact that Then the other main thing that you mentioned is that most of the stuff that happens here, overwhelmingly most of the stuff that happens here, you say 90 to 95% is for the current and future boots. Those are the big points that you bring across. And what was your question?
This podcast is continued in part 2.
Hi, this is Mark. Sometimes talking to a friend or family member about permaculture can be met with a blank stare if it's all new to them. A great way to explain some of it can be over a card game using permaculture playing cards, which each have interesting facts with quality illustrations and descriptions. A wide range of people, places, and things, all related to permaculture, can be found on the permaculture playing cards at richsoil.com/cards.